Hey, good evening. I just found this live and I just saw this guy, Perez, live at a book signing in Florida tonight, South Florida. So let's listen.
In the Iroquois Confederacy, which is a tribe of six Indian tribes, Native American tribes from the Northeast, who had created 1,000 years of peace by creating a council that included men and women. And the women chose the chiefs, and no decision was made without the females. And when the founding fathers went and investigated that, they decided that they were going to eliminate all minorities and women and just have this small council of Anglo men running things. So
British
we're
men,
about to re-embrace that tradition,
not
but it's
England
going to
men.
be multidimensional, as you're saying. Now, I also want to ask about the age of Aquarius. This is the age of Aquarius, which is now begun. I have all like 5 planets in Aquarius, so I've been seeing visions of everything for a long time, and I believe that people's missions are aligned with what their chart is. It's kind of a personal question. What is your? Are you an Aquarius or a Pisces or something? I can't hear you now. No sound.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
He's Scorpio.
I have somebody outside my door. Just give me a second.
Okay.
But I'm actually a Scorpio.
A Scorpio. Okay. Well, I know how powerful they can be. So you probably have an alignment that makes it so that this is your mission. The Scorpio is a very powerful figure, and they can draw in. If you are an eagle Scorpio, which you are, they can draw in and magnetize all the power necessary to accomplish a spiritual goal. So I see that you can be an example to other Scorpios. Do you have to stop for a minute?
Just give me 1 second. Would you be able to edit this out?
It's okay. I'll pause.
Okay, thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so I wanted to ask you about Jesus's purpose here on earth. Was he trying to show us 5D? Was he preparing us for this moment? I mean, I believe that he's part of our soul family as well. But what exactly was he trying to demonstrate when he was here?
He was trying to demonstrate. He was the perfect example of living what is known as the law of one, unity consciousness. Unconditional love for every living thing.
Having such bad
in a way, he was
posture.
here as an example of demonstrating ascension, the integration of spirit and matter, which is the process that we are all undergoing at this time. So you could say that he was one of the first indigos, one of the first starseeds.
Right.
And that's why he left a bloodline behind that gave birth to millions of indigos now. If it wasn't for him and Mary Magdalene having an offspring, we celestials or starseeds would have never incarnated during these days. So he was
definitely. They had a family, didn't they? And
Absolutely.
so this bloodline's been pursued and persecuted, but they're around, aren't they?
Well, yeah, they actually consist of the 144,000, souls that are going to be at the core of the starseed nations, and they are already here in human form.
Is that what that means? The 144,000 in the Bible?
Yeah, it's those that come from the bloodline of the Christ.
Okay. Well, one of the things I heard you talking about was the history of the White Hats. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
How did they get started? Why, when did all this begin that they decided to overthrow the aliens or whatever? I imagine this is really kind of ancient, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, it's actually a galactic war. So the Whiteheads in our galaxy are represented by the humanoids known as the Lyrians, the Pleiadians, those that come from Sirius and other systems. So it's really the war here between the good guys and the bad guys. It's rather a small reflection of the greater galactic war. So if you want to, in terms of our world, the White Hats used to be known as the Knights Templars.
Okay.
The Knights Templars were actually the rebels during the Dark Middle Ages, as the Catholic Church was the Cabal, and it still is at the core of the Cabal. And eventually, after the Knights Templars were persecuted and suppressed by the Catholic Church, some of the remnants became pirates in order to continue the millennial project of establishing Zion, which means the free world. Nothing to do with the Khazarian Jews and the Zionists that are promoted by the Rothschilds. Those are actually imposters.
Right.
They always
go
invert
back.
things around. But the true definition of Zion means freedom. And that was a millennial project that was established by the Knights Templars and through their descendants and remnants that later reorganized as the original Masons. Not the Masons that we know today, because the Masons that we know today have been infiltrated by
Yeah.
by the Cabal, by the Jesuits. So basically, they've been around. Now they are working as pretty much the Earth Alliance, and they have been assisted by the Galactic Federation, because the Galactic Federation already won the war in space. Despite of what other people are saying, in the alpha version of our galaxy, because there's 12 versions of our galaxies, the forces of light did win the war. And that's what's actually playing out here as we go into the positive ascending timeline. And then there's nothing the Darksters could do. We've already actually canceled out the other galactic versions. So now it's boiled, instead of having 12 versions, as my good friend Victoria Reynolds pointed out, now it's only down to 2 timelines, which is the negative and the positive. So we know that the negative has to do with the AI timeline, as I've been disclosing. And then, of course, the positive has to do with the organic ascending, activation of dormant DNA into a 5th dimensional timeline. So basically, beyond the Knights Templars, you could trace the White Hats back to Abraham, King David, Solomon, to the original Hebrews, not the fake Jews of today that are running Israel. And then, if you really want to go beyond that, you could trace them all the way back to to Atlantis. They were the high priest and the high priestess of the order of Amenti, or the order of Melchizedek, which guarded the halls of Amenti, which are the 12-dimensional stargates. If you want to go beyond our planet, they originated in Lyra. So the origin of the White Hats began in Lyra. And again, a lot of this has to do with the Galactic Wars against the Draco-Orion Empire. The Cabal today is they're descendants of the Draco, I guess the Draco Galactic Royal House of An, which I reveal in my book. And the White Hats, those that are protecting the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, are the descendants of Michael through Lyra, through Amelius, who was the first king of Lyra.
So the White Hats that we know
Jesus
today are made up of a mixture of humans and off-world beings working together to rid the planet of the dark system that exists, correct?
Absolutely.
So
yes.
It's not just a group of military guys hanging out with Mr. T. It's much bigger than that, isn't it?
Exactly. In fact, Mr. T and Russia, the leader of Russia, they're constantly having meetings with the Galactics.
This is I've heard.
They're working hand in hand with the Galactics.
Are we going to see a war? Do you think we're going to see an actual physical war here, where boots on the ground?
Not a war like most people think, but it's already a spiritual war. It's a war of our consciousness. It's a war to see, if we're able to free the majority of humanity's mind off from the matrix in order to create that critical mass for that shift. So it's really a war that's already in progress. It's been playing out. So as far as like a physical war, no, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is a timeline split. When the solar flash takes place, those that are not wicked are going to be going into the positive ascending timeline.
Well, that's the next question I have for you. I've been discussing the solar flash again for 30 years. I saw it way back when I was very young coming. I tried to explain it to people. Nobody seemed to understand what I was talking about. And then my particular spiritual teacher is the Holy Mother Amachi. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a Hindu saint known as the Hugging Saint, and she's living. She started telling us about 22 years ago.
Oh boy. So what do you think of all this? I bought this guy's book. I'm going to read it. I don't know how much I'm going to retain of it, because it's interesting, but it seems very complex and very layered, and I'm not sure that I'm going to completely comprehend exactly what's going on, but I have naturally always said very similar things throughout my life about things that I had heard him speak on tonight. And I don't know who this woman is questioning him. But I feel like some of it I completely resonate with, and some of it I'm just not sure. Although he speaks very confidently about everything, it's a bit overwhelming. And I actually saw the same clothes on that I had on at the event. I went to the gym and then I went right to the event. And I like this guy, Ismael Perez. I thought he was very charismatic, very engaging. 90% credible. But the thing is that we never know. We really will never know. But if you're having signs of ascension, and like those of us who do a lot of spiritual work, like a lot of meditation, a lot of healing, like I go to the scalar energy room here in South Florida to reinvigorate my body, my mind, my spirit. And it really does increase my gifts tenfold. And my gifts I will reveal as time goes on. But I always had a hunch that we were all superheroes, right? In our own right, with dormant DNA. And that's what he talked about tonight. And I've had this conversation recently with a friend and who said that Stan, the Marvel guy, had a reality show whereby he went and met actual superhumans. I don't know if any of you have seen that show, but if you have, I would love for you to post it below. Let's hear a little bit more.
Yeah, that there was coming what she calls a divine flash, that it's not really coming from the sun, it's coming from the heart, the central heart of God, the mother. And she said, when this happens, all dark individuals, or whatever you want to call them, will be eliminated from the planet. She said there's a hole on the bottom of the atmosphere where they've been coming in that's going to be healed. Mm-hmm. And she said that this was going to happen between January 1st, 2020. And she actually said this year, December 31st, 2022. She said, I believe that's when it's going to happen. And she told us this ever since 2000, like 15 times. And she talked about it over and over. So I've been sharing this, and most people just ignore that information. What do you have to say about that? I mean, what do you think about the dates, and does it align with what she said?
Absolutely, because in my vision, as I was writing our cosmic origin, I kept seeing the date between 2020 and 2023, 2024, no later than 2024. So I'm going to stick to my original vision. But she makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. She's actually talking about what's actually going to be happening. Most people don't understand that there is a connection between our opening up of the high heart chakra with the sun, because from what I've come to discover is that the chakra, which within each individual, is a miniature version of the central sun. Since we are the micro version of the universe, right? We contain all the essences and energies and qualities of a universe within our own body. So as the universe has a central sun that is spinning out universal life force, allowing that universe to be flourished with life, in the same sense, so is our heart. And that's why our bodies function. So when the heart chakra opens up, which is the thymus gland, that's going to activate the seven seals, or the seven chakras, known as the seven seals of the Book of Revelation. And then that's going to trigger the sun, the solar flash to take place. So it's a two-way process. It's the activation of the high heart chakra, triggering the release of the sun that's going to terminate all of evil within a split second. And then that's
because love is more powerful than darkness.
Absolutely. So it's a combined effort that is being orchestrated by all living things, including our galaxy, our universe, our star, which is known as Helios. A star is an entity that exists in all 12 dimensions, by the way. And of course, Mother Gaia, which is an entity that exists in all 15 dimensions.
Right. Well, so the consciousness has to advance. Enough of us have to reach a point of divine consciousness where we can bump this over, don't we? So that's why we...
Yeah, because I kind of believe in this. It's kind of crazy, but we all our energy. And if we are vibrating at the same frequency, then it institutes change. It's almost like humanity becomes a rife machine that destroys the pervasive disease of society, which is evil. So the rife machine, which I own, is a piece of equipment that is a healing device that was created in the 30s by Dr. Rife. And apparently when the Rockefellers took over medicine, they outlawed the Rife machine and told Dr. Rife you can no longer use this machine to cure cancer because now there's a chemo drug made off of petroleum. And that's the way it is. So human consciousness, in a sense, becomes a massive Rife machine that breaks up the frequency of evil. From a physics perspective, I guess that makes sense.
We can't really say what day it's going to be because there's billions of thoughts creating our future at every moment. But kind of like, doesn't it seem like it's close? Can't you feel it? Can you feel the vibration in your body?
Absolutely, especially since March and April of this year.
No.
The coming in gamma rays have been increasing. I think we've reached already X-class solar flares. So those are just signs that the sun is getting to conduct the great sneeze, as we call it sometimes.
Wasn't there going to be, we have a new sun now, don't we?
Well, Nibiru is coming back. Nibiru is going to be our second sun. That's what scientists call Nemesis, our twin sun. But again,
think about it. Why did Bill Gates want to dull the sun? Remember that? Dude, the sun is super powerful. It recharges the body, it kills viruses, and apparently if you sun gaze, you can hallucinate or feel like you're on actual drugs. That's what I heard somebody say lately. I mean, things are getting really freaking weird, right? But don't you think it's about time that things get weird? Because things got really horrific and world governments became really evil. So the only response, I guess, is shit has to get really weird, right? I mean, what other alternative do we have? Because the evilness was, in fact, weird and pervasive and scary. I wasn't scared of I was scared of this, and I was scared of doctors.
Well, that was inverted by the dark side. Nibiru has actually been the custodian, the planetoid system that was developed by the Syrian High Council millions of years ago to win the war against the Orion Empire. But, unfortunately, during the times of Atlantis, or after the fall of Atlantis, Nibiru was hijacked by Enki's son Marduk Belial-Bal, who overthrew Enlil and Anu. And then that's when they took over Nibiru. But just recently, they've been removed from Nibiru. And also Nibiru has been restored back to the Federation.
Well, there's some controversy, but I've heard you say that it's actually Enlil is actually the good one, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I've also heard that they were both dark, both negative.
No, that's what Sakurai Sitchin wanted us to believe. He's the main reason why people think Enki was good and Enlil was bad, or they're both dark. But ultimately, Enlil was actually chief guardian of the earth. He was known as the king of Alcyon. To the Greeks, he was known as Zeus.
I don't know, it just happened. But how the freak did this guy learn all this? Right? I could go into subscriptions and probably find it.
13th creation.
13th creation, okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Which is going to be birthed by the Divine Mother, right?
Yes, and that's what the 13 means. It's the return of the Divine Mother,
Yes. See, again, they tried to demonize the number 13, which is really the number of the Divine Feminine. Well, what do you see the structure of the government being, if they even have one? I see it like more like a council of elders with a lot of wise women and wise men, and not so much one male patriarchal guy that he has got the most money and the most power. Does
Oh,
it
that was
seem?
yeah,
Mhm.
that was the old patriarchal
Right.
regimen,
Mhm.
but regime, whatever you want to call it. But now we're going to be, like you said, it's going to be a council of spiritual enlightened men and women who
Mhm.
are going to be operating on multi-dimensionals. And I think at the head of these councils, we're going to have the actual cosmic rishis themselves who are going to be leading the 144,000. So it's going to be a type of egalitarian spiritual council where everything is going to now be like round tables, and that's the
Right.
original setup of the entire cosmic structure. When it comes to the forces of light, they don't have hierarchies. They don't have one person calling the shots. They have
Right.
council, and they have spiritual elders, both women and men, who are overseeing each level of reality, each realm, and each planetary sphere. And I believe that that's where we're heading again. The New Earth Council is going to be. It's already in progress, by the way. It's already, we're just gonna kind of
Sorry, I
shift
have
into
such
it,
bad
but it's already
posture
in
tonight.
place.
I'm just like,
Well,
As,
I
as
had a long
birth
day.
with
okay. That's
as
Keep
exciting.
forgetting to
yeah,
sit
very
up.
exciting.
I have a couple more questions about that, and just a comment. One is that when the
I'm
United
also on a
States was
drummer's
founded,
chair.
the Constitution was actually founded on the Iroquois Constitution, the Iroquois Confederacy, which is a tribe of six Indian tribes, Native American tribes from the Northeast, who had created 1,000 years of peace by creating a council that included men and women, and the women chose the chiefs, and no decision was made without the females. And when the founding fathers went and investigated that, they decided that they were going to eliminate all minorities and women and just have this small council of Anglo men running things. So we're about to re-embrace that tradition, but it's going to be multidimensional.
Why does she keep saying England men? It's British men. I mean, you're losing credibility, Mama.
As you're saying. Now, I also want to ask about the age of Aquarius. This is the age of Aquarius, which is now begun. I have all like 5 planets in Aquarius, so I've been seeing visions of everything for a long time, and I believe that people's missions are aligned with what their chart is. It's kind of a personal question. What is your? Are you an Aquarius or a Pisces or something?
Okay. It seems to be repeating now because I logged back in, but at any rate, you can follow PUTHYPARK. I know, I gotta turn in. I saw this guy live for 2 hours tonight. This guy, Ishmael. But I think this is his channel, so you can check it out. You can listen to his interviews, and you can decide for yourself. I'm going to read his book, but I wanted to introduce him to you nonetheless because there's a whole contingency of people who feel like things are going to be just fine, you know? And oddly, a friend of mine tonight from California, he texted me, and I'm not a LMNOP RSTUVWXYZ person, the missing letter, but apparently on the 27th, tonight, a post by this mythical person talked about DNA, the harvesting and the stealing of our DNA, which is a whole stupid, which is to soil our DNA before we can activate the dormant DNA that gives us superpowers, right? I know it sounds like a science fiction movie. I understand that. I understand this is really freaking weird shit. But don't you think after the 2 years that we went through, going on 3, that nothing is weird anymore? that nothing is impossible anymore, and that you would be remiss to not take into consideration all of these theories that are whipping around, because nothing is impossible.